What's going on, gamers? We've got an interesting video here by MBG. He says Sony didn't learn anything from Concord opinion. And this is literally about the Horizon Gatherings co-op game, which I agree with. We got a video I did about it, but it's going to be interesting to see what he says about it. And then we got an update from Jason Schreier, basically saying that Horizon 3 probably could have been in a Horizon Forbidden West, the sequel situation coming in like probably 2 years or so, or somewhere closer, if they wouldn't have been focusing on this game, but instead it's going to get pushed back a bit because they're focusing on this garbage game, which I have to say it's not a good looking game. I don't see the point. And what Sony's doing here is they're missing the opportunity to get this game out and have a cross-gen version for PS6 ready in time. Who knows if that's going to happen? Probably at PS6 launch cross-gen, but I don't know. I feel like after what the press said, and I don't know if you guys seen it, but the dislike ratio on it is pretty high compared to the like ratio. You could type in Horizon Gathers on PlayStation channel. Yeah, negative. People don't want it. They would have rather seen Horizon 3 and that other Horizon MMO game being announced day one for PlayStation 5. But I'm telling you, that's what Sony should have done. So the thing is, too, what I'm finding out is that this game started before all this nonsense happened, even with the cancel stuff way back in like 2019 or 18. So it was during that phase where, Sony was still thinking that they can push certain ideologies in the industry, and it just does not work. So they just didn't cancel the game. That's it. And I don't know why they didn't. But let's see what MBG has to say here, and then we're going to take a look at Justin Surrey over here real quick. Here we go.
All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Today we're talking about the latest entry into Sony's live service efforts, this time coming from Guerrilla Games. Yesterday, randomly, they announced Horizon Hunters Gathering. It's coming to both PS5 and PC. It's a 3-player co-op action game set in the Horizon universe, and believe it or not, this game has been in development for over 7 years. Some of you may find that shocking, but it's true.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to be upfront with you. Most of what I have to say about this game in this video is not going to be good. It's not going to be positive. Now, if you're looking for positivity with this title, frankly, you're going to have to go somewhere else. But I'm also not just going to hate on it for the sake of hating on it.
No.
I feel as though the biggest problem with this game is it reveals Sony is not letting go of chasing their Fortnite dream, and they maybe didn't learn as much with Concord as we thought they did. But I will start with one positive, and this is probably going to be the only positive that I say throughout the course of this video. I'm glad that Sony decided to announce this in this way, where there was no build-up, they just kind of shadow dropped the announcement. Here you go. Here's a 10-minute deep dive. Here's the gameplay. Here's all the details. Take it for what it is. I think that's very smart, especially considering we know that there's a state of play happening next week. It would have been, in my opinion, very unfortunate if they decided to announce this at the state of play. It could still show up, but my assumption is because they announced it this way, it's not going to. They're making room for things that, frankly, are going to be more exciting.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I don't really have anything positive to say here. I feel like when we see something like this in a post-Concord world coming from Sony, it just sends the wrong message. The biggest thing that I can't really get over right now is the fact that this game looks the way it does when a couple of months ago we got an announcement of a Horizon MMO that's developed by NCSoft. It's going to be mobile only, and people will say, wait, isn't it playable on PC? It is, but only through NCSoft's Purple application. It's still just a mobile-only game. You're not going to actually be able to play it on Steam or anything like that. When you look at that game and you realize, wow, that looks like a proper Horizon multiplayer game done right, and it's not even made by Guerrilla Games, and it's not even coming to PS5, and it's like, okay, well, Guerrilla told us that it's because they have their own multiplayer game they're working on. And then you see this revealed, and it's like, what are we doing?
Exactly. That's why I say that in my video, PlayStation is making a huge mistake with the Horizon franchise. One, you pushed back Horizon 3, your main tentpole game. Two, you didn't drop the MMO at NCSoft on PS5 day one, or you're saying you're not doing that. And then you wasted all the resources on this mid-looking game. And for how many years? 6 to 7 years? It's like, what are we doing here? Yeah, no, that's all wrong. So you're making huge mistakes with the Horizon franchise. This game should have been canned. Get your money back. Double down on the MMO at NCSoft and get involved and have it day one for PS5 ready, and then get ready to make the PS6 version cross-gen whenever you get that out. You see what I mean? And have it available for PC, because this is live service. It's like, no. These are things you have to do. Even people who make gacha games make sure it's on PC day one. So it's like, that's what I mean by, like, you're making three mistakes. You're pushing back Horizon 3. You're making a pointless game that nobody wants, chasing a trend that is not going to work for that game, because it's everything else out is better than that. Just look at it. And then you don't have the MMO from NCSoft doing the right things, where it's like, but Horizon is your game. Its legacy is on PlayStation. Why would you not have that day one on PlayStation? It doesn't make any sense. So that's why I was like, no, man, this needs to be talked about. This is not being negative towards PlayStation. No, this is criticizing Sony to say, no. You still have a chance to turn some of this around. Yeah, you might have wasted a lot of time on that, but hey, you can recoup it back. People do it all the time when you cancel something and you get that money back. You can just sign it. So that's what I think Sony should do. And like I said, double down and get Guerrilla to get back on Horizon 3, and also get involved with that MMO to get it out on PS5 and PS5 Pro. And then if you want to expand out to like Steam and other platforms, go ahead and do that, because this is live service. You're okay with that. But other than that, it's like, yeah, I don't know what we're talking about, because if we go over here to this right here, it says Jason Schreier claims that Horizon 3 is still a few years away. So that's 2 plus or 2.5 or 3, probably PS6 launch. This is because Guerrilla is focused on finishing and releasing Horizon Online. Guys, this is the stuff I'm talking about. No, they're talking about that gatherings. Because honestly, I don't get developers at all. Instead of making the things people literally are begging for, and a lot, they prefer to waste time on unnecessarily soulless features that nobody asked for, and they already know people are going to crap on it. And I just don't understand why. I guess they have to spend a certain budget every year or something like that. I don't like the Horizon Saga, but prioritizing an online game over a single player one always seems like a monumental F up here. And that, remember we were saying that before, but the Goose Live service, like Sony, you get back to what's strong. And they should have been working on Horizon 3 since last year. More. So this guy says, Guerrilla is in the crapper. Imagine Foley focusing on that POS online game. Instead, Guerrilla also ruined by the gas, and the genius host doesn't have the slightest effing clue. But how many multiplayer Horizon games are they going to release? This is what I mean. Like, it's like you got to get one good one right here. There's too much quality and not enough. There's too much quantity and not enough quality focus. So let's finish seeing what MG has to say here. It's like, man, dude.
I mean, I really just have to ask this question. What are we doing? Who is making these decisions, man? I feel like this is some of the most backwards, upside down decision making I've ever seen from a gaming company.
Yeah.
Where it's like, when you look at Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West, and in my opinion, these are fantastic games. Not only is the gameplay great and the stories are good in my opinion, but, you know, you look at the art style, the art direction, the graphical fidelity, and I feel like that's always been a highlight of the Horizon games. I feel like anybody who says it's not is kind of lying to themselves and being disingenuous, where when people look at the Horizon franchise, one of the first things that pops into their mind is just how good and how gorgeous the game looks, right? That's what really just blows my mind with this, is how is it that NCSoft is the one nailing the look and the vibe and the feel of the Horizon universe better than Guerrilla Games, the actual creators of the game, are doing right now with this, you know, Fortnite-looking Horizon game.
With Dauntless and Monster Hunter vibes.
There's a vibe with this title that it just rubs people the wrong way. because people aren't stupid. They know exactly what Sony's trying to do with this game. They know exactly what Guerrilla Games is trying to do with this game, and it's exactly that. It's their unwillingness to give up on chasing that Fortnite dream or getting their own Genshin Impact of some kind, or just something along those lines where they're just frankly trend chasing. I always highlight Helldivers 2 and the fact that Sony had no idea that game was going to be a success. Of
Hmm.
course, Sony funded it, and I give them all the credit in the world for sticking with Arrowhead, doubling their budget, giving them more time, and allowing them to really bring that game up so it could end up being the success story that it was. But make no mistake, Sony did not even remotely anticipate that game being a hit live service title. It was just something that they're like, okay, well, let's see what we can do with it. And on the flip side of that, we've talked, ad nauseum about their expectations with Concord, where apparently internally Sony viewed Concord as their own Star Wars-esque property. That's how high on Concord they were. And then you see something like this coming from Guerrilla Games, and you can tell like there's just this overall, I would say, flawed mentality within a lot of these PlayStation studios attempting to make these live service games, where rather than focusing on being unique and being distinct and doing something genuinely different, like Helldivers did, they're just like, well, let's look around at what is, the most successful live service titles on the PlayStation platform or in the industry and just kind of follow their lead. And it's like, listen, on paper, I understand that. I get that the data tells you this and the data tells you that. But again, man, it's just you see what Sony themselves and Arrowhead achieved with Helldivers 2, and it should really just cause them to rethink titles like this and really ask themselves, should we go through with this? Is this a title worth releasing? And
Yes.
listen, man, Sony has canceled many live service games. A lot of them, I think, were probably justified. One of the games that unfortunately was canceled, as you know, was The Last of Us multiplayer. Now, listen, I'm not going to do that thing where it's like, The Last of Us Online died, so this horrible Horizon live service game could live. It's not that. We know that Naughty Dog themselves wanted to cancel the live service game because they didn't want to support a live service title.
Yes, but that would have been much better than this. And I get what he's probably going to say. Because you could always pause something. You don't necessarily have to cancel it or migrate that over into maybe your next game, Last of Us game if you plan on doing Last of Us 3 or something. But I think they should have done that. And yeah, instead, they made the decision to cancel something that was probably good and to leave it out. So it's not like you were saying something negative because of that. Because it's true, though, in a way.
That makes sense. But it is just kind of difficult for me as a PlayStation fan who likes a lot of these franchises to see that this is how it's all kind of turning out, where rather than
Yeah.
getting a really cool Last of Us multiplayer game that's kind of a follow-up to Factions, we're getting something like this in the Horizon universe, which, is another thing I want to point out, and it's the fact that out of all of the different franchises that Sony has, I would say, really tried to, go all in with, they've really overdone it to a certain degree with Horizon, where it feels like every year they have multiple Horizon projects they're announcing. And I get that, people might say the same thing about The Last of Us with, how many remasters and remakes. And I understand, but I genuinely feel like something like The Last of Us multiplayer would have been very cool. Something that felt genuinely
Yeah.
different and separate from, kind of just like re-releasing the single player games that we've gotten. But yeah, just the general takeaway here is that Sony has, all of these different properties. They have so much IP that they're sitting on that they've done nothing with as well. And you can just try to start to imagine all the different directions that they could potentially go in pursuing live service games, multiplayer titles. I mean, I think of things like even SOCOM and how I know people will say, well, SOCOM had its chance, right? Just like Killzone did and Resistance and all these classic PlayStation IPs. They all had their chance, and none of them did anywhere near as well as games like Horizon and others that Sony is still currently pursuing. But the thing I want to kind of push back with here a little bit is that I don't think any of these franchises or IPs were given a fair chance in the live service era. We have to kind of keep in mind that all of these titles like SOCOM, Resistance, Killzone, etc., they really only were allowed to exist during the time when add-on multiplayer, or tacked-on multiplayer, if you want to call it that, was the main thing, right?
I agree with him. It's like, when you come over and take a look at this type of stuff, you're like, you could have been working on a next gen Killzone with the improvements you made as a studio to jump to Horizon and make that big leap and then use the engines that you have now. And you could have tried a Killzone live service. You could have tried a SOCOM. You see what I mean? And you can't think about whether they did good back then or not. Now is a different time where you could have much more major success. You can't base that off of that. It would have worked. They would have been much better doing that. That's the thing, and that's the thing that a lot of people have talked about here before is that you got these franchises that people loved back then, and the PS3 was too expensive. And online now, with you having a much bigger lead over Xbox and people looking for your console to be the definitive console for mainstream shooters outside of the PC spectrum, yeah, I mean, you had that opportunity and you still do in a lot of ways, Sony. And that's the thing where it's like, you could still do that. It's still there. You could say, cancel this game and let's do something like that and get Horizon 3 out. I don't understand why they haven't done that. Like, that's something they need to do. 100%.
And they all kind of simultaneously went away right before the live service era. So I guess I just don't really see what the harm would be in Sony giving it just one more chance, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, here is a SOCOM live service game or a Killzone live service game. I mean, that's like something I can't help but think right now with Guerrilla is we've gotten so much Horizon. I mean, so much Horizon. Where how cool would it have been if they were like, hey guys, we've actually been working on a live service Killzone game where it's just something we wanted to do, kind of bring the franchise back. Some people are obviously going to be a little upset if it doesn't have a single player and it's going to be live service, but still, I just feel like the response to that would be so much better, where it's like, oh, sweet. But no, we're living in a period of time where, again, you're seeing Arrowhead do more with Killzone than Guerrilla is. And I'm just going to be blunt. That sucks. That sucks, where it's like, hey, Guerrilla, can we get like something Killzone related again? Maybe, you give it another shot in the live service era, and they're like, no, we're going to give you this instead. And I just look at it and I'm like, I'm going to be brutally honest, this just looks like trash. Like, really? Like, this is what you guys have been spending 7 years working on? Now, don't get me wrong, they're still making Horizon 3. They reassured us they're still making single-player games, but I just can't help but shake my head, man. Like, I thought we were past this.
Yeah.
I think that's
Same.
the big frustration I have right now is I thought we were past this. And so it tells me that, no, we're not past it, and we can expect maybe more of this going forward, unfortunately. But
I don't know about that, but I think this is just something that they just didn't want to cancel because they've canceled enough and they wanted to see what was going to happen. Maybe after this, they're just going to stop and make some intelligent decisions, hopefully. But you guys let me know what you think about this. As usual, I love reacting to MVG content. I mean, we've got to see this, which is unfortunate. I would rather have seen them. It's a few years away because we're working on a IP that is in the shooter universe or something, but they're not. So yeah, leave a comment down below if you want to like. Peace out, y'all. Keep gaming, no matter what platform you're on.